The 1920s in Chicago were loud, electric, and dangerous. Jazz poured from speakeasies, bootleg liquor flowed behind hidden doors, and organized crime rose to power in the shadows of Prohibition. At the center of it all stood Al Capone, one of the most infamous figures of the era. But beyond the headlines, courtrooms, and gunfire, there was another side to Capone's life that rarely makes the spotlight: the food he ate. Despite his larger-than-life criminal empire, Capone's tastes were often surprisingly traditional. Born in Brooklyn to Italian immigrant parents, he grew up surrounded by the flavors of southern Italy. Those early culinary influences stayed with him long after he moved to Chicago. One of the most documented foods Capone loved was pasta. Simple spaghetti with tomato sauce, garlic, olive oil, and herbs was a staple in his household. Italian-American kitchens in the 1920s relied heavily on pasta because it was affordable, filling, and deeply tied to cultural identity. For Capone, pasta wasn't just food, it was familiarity. Meatballs frequently accompanied those pasta dishes, made from a mixture of ground beef, breadcrumbs, eggs, and seasoning. Meatballs represented the Italian-American adaptation of Old World recipes to New World ingredients. Large family-style platters were common, especially during gatherings. Capone was also known to favor hearty meat dishes. Veal cutlets, often breaded and pan-fried, were popular among Italian households at the time. These dishes reflected prosperity, something Capone made sure to project publicly. Chicago in the 1920s was a meatpacking powerhouse, and beef was widely available. Steaks became a symbol of status. High-end restaurants and hotel dining rooms served thick cuts of beef, and Capone, who enjoyed being seen as powerful and wealthy, dined in establishments where such meals were common. Seafood also appeared on the tables of prominent Chicago figures. Clams, oysters, and calamari were brought in by rail from coastal regions. Italian-American cuisine embraced seafood, especially on religious observance days. Capone reportedly enjoyed home-cooked meals more than elaborate restaurant cuisine. His wife, May Capone, maintained a relatively private domestic life, and meals at home often included soups like minestrone, a vegetable-based soup with beans and pasta that stretched ingredients efficiently. Bread was central to every meal. Fresh Italian bread, crusty on the outside and soft inside, was used to soak up sauce or accompany meats. Bread symbolized sustenance and tradition. Wine was another important element. Although Prohibition banned alcohol nationally, Capone's bootlegging empire ensured that quality liquor and imported wines were always available to him. At private dinners, wine flowed freely. Chicken dishes were common as well. Roasted chicken with herbs, garlic, and potatoes reflected both comfort and abundance. These were not extravagant French preparations, they were rustic and filling. While Capone's public image centered around violence and power, his food preferences often mirrored those of countless Italian-American families of the era. He valued meals that connected him to heritage. In the roaring chaos of 1922 Chicago, food offered stability. At the table, hierarchy softened. Family-style serving emphasized unity. Even a crime boss returned, at least briefly, to the simplicity of shared plates. Understanding what Al Capone actually ate humanizes a figure often reduced to myth. His meals reflected immigration, adaptation, ambition, and identity. The same forces shaping Chicago itself during that turbulent decade. Behind the headlines, beyond the gunfire, there was pasta simmering in saucepans and bread breaking at the table. While Al Capone's public life revolved around power, territory, and bootlegging, his private dining habits reflected both indulgence and practicality. Chicago in the 1920s was a booming industrial city, packed with immigrants, stockyards, and bustling markets. Food was abundant for those with money, and Capone had plenty of it. One of the dishes strongly associated with Chicago during Capone's era was Italian sausage. Seasoned with fennel, garlic, and red pepper, sausages were sold in neighborhood markets and served at home with peppers and onions. For Italian-American families, sausage represented flavor without excessive cost, though for Capone, cost was rarely a concern. Braciole, thin slices of beef rolled with breadcrumbs, cheese, and herbs, simmered in tomato sauce, was another dish common in southern Italian households. Slow cooked and deeply flavored, it reflected patience and tradition. Meals like these connected Capone to his Neapolitan roots. Capone was also known to entertain guests lavishly. Banquets in private rooms often included roast beef, glazed ham, and platters of antipasto cured meats, olives, cheeses, and pickled vegetables. These spreads were statements of wealth and influence. Chicago's fine dining establishments served French-inspired cuisine as well. Dishes such as duck l'orange or rich beef roasts were popular among wealthy patrons. Though Capone preferred Italian food, he understood the importance of being seen enjoying elite dining experiences. Fish remained important in Italian households, particularly on Fridays. Baked whitefish, sardines packed in oil, and calamari were all common in Chicago's Italian neighborhoods. Imported canned fish products were widely available and affordable. Capone reportedly had a fondness for sweets. Italian pastries like cannoli, crisp shells filled with sweet ricotta cream, and sfogliatelle were available in bakeries across Chicago's Little Italy. These desserts balanced richness with nostalgia. Ice cream parlors thrived during the 1920s, even during Prohibition. Ice cream sundaes, topped with chocolate syrup and whipped cream, were popular indulgences. Capone, known to have a softer side with children, likely enjoyed these American treats as well. Potatoes were a versatile staple, roasted, mashed, or fried. They appeared alongside meats at both home dinners and restaurant meals. Chicago's access to Midwestern farms ensured steady supplies of fresh produce and dairy. Another notable dish of the era was baked ziti. Pasta layered with tomato sauce, ricotta, and mozzarella created a hearty, oven-baked meal perfect for feeding large groups. Dishes like this suited Capone's frequent gatherings. Stews were also common. Beef stew with carrots, onions, and potatoes was hearty and practical, especially during Chicago's brutal winters. Thick, warming meals were essential in a city known for its cold winds off Lake Michigan. Capone's lifestyle demanded security and privacy. Many meals were consumed in controlled environments, private clubs, guarded hotel suites, or heavily protected homes. Dining was as much about safety as pleasure. Despite his criminal empire, Capone reportedly valued traditional family meals. Sitting down with relatives for Sunday dinner was culturally significant. Large platters placed at the center of the table reinforced community bonds. Alcohol, though illegal nationwide, remained ever present in Capone's world. Champagne, whiskey, and imported wines were served freely at his gatherings. High-end liquor symbolized defiance of prohibition laws and reinforced his dominance in the bootlegging industry. Food during Capone's reign tells a layered story. On one hand, there was cultural preservation: pasta, bread, seafood, and slow-cooked sauces. On the other, there was excess prime steaks, luxury banquets, flowing champagne. In the roaring landscape of 1922 Chicago, meals reflected status. For Al Capone, food was not only sustenance, it was identity, influence, and image carefully maintained. Behind closed doors, amid bodyguards and business deals, plates were filled with dishes that carried both heritage and power. To understand what Al Capone actually ate in 1920s Chicago, it's important to understand the city itself. Chicago was a crossroads of America. Rail lines brought cattle from the west, grain from the Midwest, and seafood from the coasts. Markets overflowed with ingredients. For ordinary citizens, meals depended on income. For Capone, wealth removed limits. One of the most common staples in Italian-American homes during this period was baked lasagna, layered with pasta sheets, rich tomato sauce, ground beef, ricotta, and mozzarella. Lasagna was both celebratory and practical. It could feed large gatherings, something Capone frequently hosted. Chicago was famous for its stockyards, and beef dominated the city's cuisine. Prime rib roasts, porterhouse steaks, and slow-braised beef short ribs were widely available in upscale restaurants. Capone, who often dined in high-end establishments like the Lexington Hotel's dining rooms, would have had easy access to premium cuts. Another dish tied to Italian heritage was eggplant parmigiana. Sliced eggplant, breaded and fried. Layered with sauce and cheese, it was hearty yet rooted in peasant traditions. For immigrants who rose to wealth, serving such dishes symbolized pride in origins. Chicago-style hot dogs were emerging in the 1920s as affordable street food. While Capone was associated with fine dining, he grew up in working-class neighborhoods where sausages and hot dogs were common fare. It's likely he occasionally enjoyed these simple foods that reflected his early life. Risotto, though less common in southern Italy, appeared in Italian-American kitchens influenced by northern traditions. Cooked slowly with broth, butter, and cheese, it represented patience and technique, qualities valued in traditional cooking. Shellfish platters were frequently served at private banquets. Oysters on ice, shrimp cocktails, and clams were considered luxurious. Seafood was transported efficiently by train, allowing Chicago elites to enjoy coastal delicacies despite the inland location. Chicken cacciatore, chicken braised with tomatoes, onions, herbs, and sometimes wine, was another rustic favorite. Slow cooked and flavorful, it blended simplicity with richness. Capone's gatherings were known for abundance. Tables overflowed with cured meats like prosciutto and salami, aged cheeses, olives, roasted peppers, and marinated vegetables. Antipasto platters signaled hospitality and status. Breadsticks and focaccia accompanied many meals. Italian bakeries thrived in neighborhoods like Little Italy, producing fresh bread daily. Bread was not optional, it was foundational. Chicago's immigrant communities also embraced American desserts. Apple pie, custard pie, and layer cakes appeared alongside Italian pastries. These desserts reflected assimilation into American culture while preserving ethnic identity. Coffee culture played a role as well. Strong espresso concluded many Italian meals. Coffee houses became gathering spots for conversation and business, though Capone's meetings were rarely ordinary. During Prohibition, speakeasies flourished. These hidden bars served not only alcohol, but also food to encourage longer stays. Fried appetizers, sandwiches, and small plates kept patrons comfortable while jazz bands played late into the night. Capone's wealth allowed him to import specialty ingredients, olive oil from Italy, aged cheeses, fine wines smuggled past Prohibition restrictions. Access to these goods reinforced his image as untouchable. Yet despite the glamour, many of the foods Capone ate were deeply traditional. Tomato-based sauces simmered for hours. Garlic and basil perfumed kitchens. Family-style platters dominated tables. In many ways, Capone's diet mirrored the immigrant story itself, rooted in humble beginnings, expanding into abundance, yet always tied to memory. The Roaring Twenties were marked by excess, but beneath the flashbulbs and newspaper headlines, meals remained intimate. Rituals. Around heavy wooden tables in guarded rooms, dishes were passed, bread was broken, and conversations shaped the future of Chicago's underworld. Food in Capone's world was both comfort and display, a blend of heritage, power, and spectacle. By the late 1920s, Al Capone was no longer just a gang leader, he was a public figure whose lifestyle symbolized excess during Prohibition. His dining habits reflected both calculated image building and genuine cultural attachment. One meal frequently associated with powerful men of the era was the classic steak dinner. Thick porterhouse or T-bone steaks, seared and served with butter, symbolized American strength and wealth. Chicago's reputation as the nation's meat capital made these cuts easily accessible. For Capone, ordering the finest beef reinforced dominance. Lamb dishes were also popular within Italian-American communities. Roasted leg of lamb seasoned with garlic and rosemary often appeared at Sunday gatherings. These meals were slow-cooked and ceremonial, reinforcing family unity despite Capone's dangerous profession. Pasta e fagioli, pasta with beans, represented something more humble. This dish, born from necessity in southern Italy, relied on inexpensive ingredients yet delivered rich flavor. Even wealthy families continued preparing it because it carried cultural memory. Chicago's hotels, including the Lexington Hotel where Capone kept a suite, offered elaborate room service menus. Lobster thermidor, roast duck, and creamy soups like vicases were available to elite guests. While Capone favored Italian dishes, he was not isolated from broader culinary trends. Cold cuts and deli sandwiches were common midday meals. Italian sub-style sandwiches filled with salami, provolone, lettuce, and oil were portable and practical. For a man constantly surrounded by guards and business associates, quick meals were sometimes necessary. Another traditional favorite was stuffed peppers, bell peppers filled with ground beef, rice, herbs, and tomato sauce. This dish balanced thrift and flavor, making it popular across immigrant households. Capone reportedly enjoyed hearty breakfasts when time allowed. Eggs fried in olive oil, sausage, toasted bread, and strong coffee provided energy. In elite restaurants, omelets and breakfast steaks were also served. Chicago's dairy supply supported rich cheeses and cream-based dishes. Baked macaroni with cheese, enhanced with sharp cheddar or mozzarella, bridged American and Italian tastes. Comfort foods like this carried cross-cultural appeal. Prohibition ironically elevated food culture in speakeasies. Because alcohol was illegal, establishments served food to disguise operations as restaurants. Fried chicken, deviled eggs, shrimp cocktails, and small sandwiches were common offerings. Capone's influence over the alcohol trade meant he had access to these spaces whenever he pleased. Roasted vegetables accompanied many meals: carrots glazed with butter, roasted onions, and sautéed greens. While meat often dominated headlines, vegetables remained essential components of balanced dinners. Capone's public dinners were strategic, inviting politicians, businessmen, or entertainers to lavish meals built alliances. Multi-course dinners often began with soup, followed by fish, then meat, finishing with dessert and coffee. Tiramisu was not yet common in America during the 1920s, but simpler Italian sweets like biscotti and almond cookies were widely available. These were often served with coffee after dinner. Fruit bowls were a symbol of abundance. Imported oranges, grapes, and figs sometimes decorated tables. Access to such produce during winter months suggested wealth. One lesser-discussed aspect of Capone's dining life was security. Meals were tasted by trusted associates to ensure safety. Dining for a crime boss required caution, even at the table. Despite the glamour surrounding his persona, Capone remained attached to familiar flavors: garlic-heavy sauces, slow-cooked meats, fresh bread. These were constants in a life otherwise filled with unpredictability. Chicago in the 1920s was a city of contrasts: poverty and wealth, violence and jazz, immigration and ambition. Capone's meals reflected those same contrasts. Rustic pasta shared space with lobster platters. Bean soup coexisted with champagne. Food, in Capone's world, functioned as nourishment, negotiation tool, and symbol of identity. Around the dinner table, business deals were discussed, loyalties tested, and reputations reinforced. Beyond the myths and mob stories, there were kitchens filled with simmering pots and dining rooms glowing under chandelier light. In those spaces, plates told stories of heritage and power intertwined. As the 1920s drew toward their turbulent close, Al Capone's empire stood at its peak, and so did the image he carefully constructed around himself. Food played a subtle but powerful role in that image. In a decade defined by prohibition, jazz, and organized crime, dining was more than nourishment. It was theater. One of the dishes commonly served at elite Chicago banquets was roast turkey with rich gravy. Though often associated with holidays, turkey symbolized abundance and American prosperity. For Capone, publicly embracing such dishes helped reinforce his persona as a successful businessman rather than merely a bootlegger. Another likely presence at his table was baked ham, glazed with brown sugar or honey. Sweet, caramelized, and visually impressive, glazed ham frequently appeared at large gatherings. It carved beautifully, feeding many guests, ideal for someone who hosted powerful associates. Italian wedding soup, made with small meatballs and leafy greens in a light broth, reflected tradition and comfort. Despite its name, the dish symbolized the marriage of flavors rather than an actual ceremony. Meals like this connected Capone to cultural roots, even as his lifestyle drifted further into luxury. Polenta, a cornmeal-based dish, was another staple in Italian households. Creamy or sliced and fried, it was affordable yet satisfying. Even wealthy families retained dishes like polenta because they carried generational memory. Chicago's access to freshwater fish from the Great Lakes meant whitefish and perch appeared frequently on menus. Lightly breaded and fried, or baked with butter and lemon, these fish dishes blended regional availability with Italian seasoning styles. Capone's wealth ensured access to imported olive oils, cured olives, anchovies, and aged cheeses. These ingredients elevated simple dishes into refined experiences. A drizzle of quality olive oil over pasta or vegetables signaled authenticity and status. At upscale dinners, multiple courses were common. A typical progression might begin with antipasto, followed by soup, then fish, then a meat entree with sides, and finally dessert and espresso. Dining unfolded slowly, allowing conversation and negotiation. Dessert tables were often elaborate. Layer cakes, chocolate torts, and custards reflected American baking traditions. Alongside them, cannoli and ricotta pies represented Italian heritage. Sweet endings softened even the hardest negotiations. Champagne, smuggled through Capone's vast bootlegging network, flowed freely at private gatherings. Though illegal under Prohibition, fine liquor became a symbol of defiance and power. Serving premium alcohol reinforced Capone's control over the underground economy. Even simple foods like garlic bread or buttered rolls carried weight. Bread anchored every meal, symbolizing stability in a volatile world. Breaking bread together created temporary unity, even among rivals. Capone reportedly appreciated hearty comfort foods, thick soups, roasted meats, pasta drenched in sauce. Despite immense wealth, he did not abandon the flavors of his upbringing. Instead, he amplified them with better ingredients and grander settings. It's important to remember that while Capone dined lavishly, many Chicago residents struggled through economic inequality and, by the decade's end, the onset of the Great Depression, his extravagant meals stood in stark contrast to the hardships faced by others. Yet food humanizes even the most infamous figures. Beneath headlines of crime and courtroom drama, there were dinners shared with family, plates passed across tables, and moments of ordinary ritual. The foods Al Capone actually ate in 1920s Chicago reflect more than indulgence. They reveal an immigrant story, one shaped by ambition, adaptation, and identity. Italian traditions met American abundance. Rustic recipes met roaring excess. In guarded hotel suites and private dining rooms, amid laughter, jazz, and whispered deals, meals unfolded course by course. Garlic simmered in saucepans. Steaks sizzled. Champagne corks popped softly against the hum of conversation. Through food, Capone maintained connection to his roots while projecting the power he had accumulated. Every dish told part of the story of Chicago, immigration, of Prohibition, and of a man who built an empire in one of America's most turbulent decades. Behind the legend of Al Capone stood tables set with pasta, steak, seafood, and bread, reminders that even history's most notorious figures lived, ate, and gathered around meals shaped by culture and era.